is yours.
Thank you.
Happy to have you here.
Yeah, I first want to start by just saying that Julie's talk now before me, her learnings she shared and the way they go about it is basically what I conclude my slides with. It's amazing seeing their journey and also how we've come to a lot of those same learnings. And that really excites me to hear that from other people as well who's doing very interesting products in this field. So maybe let me first start by just introducing quickly augmental technologies and first the theme, collaboration and integration together stronger. So I'm going to tell about our story and our learnings, but I'm not here to just go through our product that we've built. I want to more talk about the learnings around digital health and especially looking at collaboration and integration on a technology level, but also on a person level. That's been a very interesting journey, and I want to share some of that and hopefully help also inspire others who's on this journey. So that's a central idea here today. Before I jump into that, just double checking, everybody's seeing the slides. Is that fine?
Yes, we see them perfectly, okay. And they are moving.
Cool. I first want to give a little bit of background about our product. So Augmental Technologies, like you mentioned, co-founded that together with Michael, and I'm CEO there. And recently we also got two clinical experts or neurodivergent experts on board the leadership team as well, Carla and Nanette. We basically have a platform where we empower the parents of children that has like ADHD or autism, other neurodivergent diagnosis. And there's two parts in that platform. The one is helping them do the care management, allowing them to more easily track progress, share that information with everybody involved around the child. Also get teachers on board, for example, other family members who's maybe involved in the child's care. So we want to support them in that role. And also what we've learned is the parents need practical advice and information. And I'll get to some more learnings as we go on. So we've started onto this platform building access to support in various ways. And I'm going to touch a bit more on that as we go on. The first thing is from a pediatric point of view, and we look at especially neurodivergent conditions, but I'm sure in the audience you will maybe have experience with diabetes or other kind of complex care conditions. There's a saying, I think every continent in the world says it comes from there, but we like to say this is a saying from Africa. It takes a village to raise a child. And just a bit of that context that we work from. Typically, if you look at neurodivergence, there's multiple healthcare providers involved in that care journey. It might be a pediatrician, psychologist, psychiatrist, therapist, speech therapist, occupational therapist, and there's different people involved. And the parent is typically the primary care coordinator. They must run around between all of these healthcare providers. They must take the child to places, or they must enforce certain training at home maybe, or programs. It's really overwhelming for the parent. The children and that family is affected for the rest of their lives typically. This is something that it's part of who that child is. And the parents need to learn to cope with that and support that child. Observations and assessments over time and over this long periods of time, various locations by various people are really needed to do proper care management and make proper decisions. And there's also social and financial impact on the family. Socially, unfortunately, there's still a lot of stigma around neurodivergence. And many times that child and even a family are isolated in a community. And there's a financial impact. A lot of this care cost, it's increasing and it's typically not reimbursed, or in a lot of countries and healthcare systems, it's not. So from that context is where we work from when we say we're building something to support the parent in raising this child and including the others in the village to raise the child. But there's certain challenges that we find. If you look at the healthcare system challenges, and this isn't specific in pediatric care or mental health. I think this is global, and in this conference there's been a lot of reference to this. There are not enough healthcare providers. This is true in Africa, it's true in US, EU, UK, in the East. There's just not enough. Recently, the Health Resources and Services Administration in the US, they actually interesting report saying that to just meet the current needs there in the US, they need to double the number of therapists. By 2025, there will be a shortage. This is now on mental health condition side. There will be a shortage of 238,000 therapists. In the UK, in a discussion yesterday, I heard that the average waiting time for diagnosis now increased from 2 years to 4 years. So it's massive. So it's not even just 6 months. The COVID pandemic, the impact on that was unfortunately very negative. So these waiting periods has increased in the last 2 years. There's a high cost of care. Of course, it's a condition that you need to live with for a long time as well. Added to that, there are typically not everything is reimbursable or covered by health insurance. The healthcare providers, we see there are exceptions to this. There are some very good clinics and other organizations that bring the various type of healthcare providers needed in the neurodivergent space together. But unfortunately, this isn't happening enough yet, and we see silos, and the parent is the one who must reach those gaps currently. And then a lot of this is leading to inconsistent, low quality information, making decision-making for proper care plans or suggestions of things to try at home or whatever the case might be, making that very difficult. And this is where digital health plays a massive role, not just in neurodivergent space where we're focusing. I mean, we've seen stories now from everywhere. And just to quickly recap, if we look at digital health, there's a few things that's part of digital health solutions. As simple as electronic health records. More and more countries, systems, healthcare systems, and so on is starting to properly use that. Telemedicine is really showing in this pandemic times, online consultations, leading to better health equity and availability of specialist care. Digital therapeutics, I want to add another one there, software as a medical device. We can see it's a very new industry because for some definitions, software as a medical device is a subset of DTX, and for others, it's the other way around. For me, maybe just for this discussion, looking at both of those, they are typically then technology solutions used as intervention. So the idea is applying software, app, different kinds of technology out there that is supposed to improve some kind of health outcome. And then something that's really started to be recognized more and more is what I call digital front doors, is one of the terms, or navigation apps, and as well as digital companions. Those kind of groupings they not necessarily have an intervention that I offer, but they help the patient typically to navigate through very complex healthcare systems. It might be particularly focused on a certain area like oncology maybe. It might be focused regionally or within a specific healthcare system, but it's there to help parents, in our case parents, more generically patients, navigate complex systems and be able to better help themselves. And the companions and assistance side is where we are really focusing, and that's a supporting digital platform or app in our case. That's a companion. It supports the parent. It supports them in various ways that we look at a bit more. So what's a main value add through this technology solution? So I've kind of summarized it in 3 impact areas. And that's where we really framing our app and building our app around those kind of impacts. So digital health technology can increase collaboration. In our scenario, our app allows parents to more closely work with teachers, with other family members, and with the various therapists, coaches, pediatricians, and so on involved. And it also allow the healthcare providers to better collaborate around a child. Simple things, securing in a secure manner, sharing sensitive information, making that patient effective part of their own care team. In our case, it's the parent of the child because we're focusing on pre-teen children. And just allowing some things like that, sharing that information in a more effective way is already having a massive impact. The other thing that is really a strong impact for digital health is integrate different sources of information. Wearables, for example, allowing us to passively track things like physical activity and sleep of a child. That information is extremely valuable to have over time. Integrating with electronic health record systems. So when a parent goes from one healthcare provider to another, they have the information available, and they're not having guesswork or maybe prescribing medication that clash with medication that the other care provider has prescribed. And that happens. It's scary how often that actually happens. Digitizing paper-based assessments. Paper-based assessments is still the way most of these diagnoses is happening in the neurodivergent space. It's not effective. And slowly but surely, we're starting to help digitize that, make it more effective. And in different systems, both information systems as well as human systems, integrating that, getting information flowing between systems. It's just, adding to that impact. The other big thing that we also see is it supports personalized care. There's been for years now a big drive around better health outcomes on a personal level, and looking at ways in which to measure that. Digital health supports that by improving navigation, more personalized navigation based on your context, and also makes it easier to have a more personalized care plans. Unfortunately, there are shortcomings. I'm just going to quickly go through some of these and then focus on the shortcomings that is really something that we've realized in our story. There's a lot of noise out there, snake oil. There's some really good digital health solutions. We believe we're in the good category with Tracto, but there's also a lot of noise. Part of that noise is a lot of one-size-fits-all approaches. People who are not really working from the patient or the clinical point of view, who are just trying to scale recipes. We see that unvalidated solutions maybe as well. On that side, a lot of good things are happening around approval processes for DTX and validation processes in EU, in the US, and all over. We see more and more digital solutions becoming validated, clinically validated, but they are still unvalidated. A lot of those are expensive and not reimbursable yet. Part of it is maybe they haven't been validated yet and still being worked on. In lots of parts of the world, it's just not being recognized to be reimbursable yet. The time and friction. It's an interesting one that user experience is very important, as we've heard from Judy, but it's still to lock medication, like we now see has been released with Apple iOS 16. You have to spend time setting up that medication, doing the reminders, saying that you've done it. It takes time, and there is friction involved. The challenge is to balance that the value that you could provide is enough to overcome the friction, and the friction is as little as possible. So that is something that must actively be worked on. Scaling the wrong thing is an interesting one. I mentioned earlier around the short clinical skill shortages globally. There's unfortunately a trend in a lot of online platforms to make things more effective, for example, scheduling. But all it does is it puts pressure on the main constraint, which is skill shortage. So yes, there's a lot of other benefits it brings, but we can't assume because it's a digital and a technology solution that it just magically overcomes the clinical skill shortage. That's something else entirely that still has to be worked on. Unfortunately, we see a profit above people approach by a lot of technology companies. There's this last few months really a lot of talk around that. There's examples of platforms who are not paying enough to, for example, a therapist. They overworking them, they booking them, the schedules, overbooking them. Unfortunately, things like that happen, and that is being addressed actively. There's usually a lot of outcry, and companies are adjusting around that. And the other big thing that's missing with digital and with technology only solutions is a little emotional or no emotional support even. It's not the same having a bunch of online meetings as opposed to having real person workshops. Yes, the one is more accessible, and it's a lot of other benefits doing things online and doing it through technology, definitely. But we must just realize the shortcoming of that. So how do we solve this? Do we just throw in more AI? Do we get bigger funders, bigger investors? Is it all a case of regulations and laws? Well, I don't think there isn't a single thing to solve for all of those, way to solve all of those shortcomings. And all the DTX solutions or digital health solutions out there isn't necessarily the shortcomings isn't a problem for each of those. But something that we've learned from our story is basically, let me tell a bit of that. So Mike and I started out a few years ago, and we thought, okay, we know and we really love getting people collaborating. How do we get them to work together better? And we started looking in a neurodivergent space, and in digital health. We've been in the digital health space for a few years by that time. And we thought, okay, let's build a technology solution that helps with this. We have a great vision. We want to empower the parent. They're gonna communicate better with teachers, with doctors, with everybody, and the child will just be better off. And we built this. We worked with the parents to learn around the user experience, and that lots of surveys, and we try to do it in the right way. And obviously then thousands and thousands of parents will come, and we have a massive impact on the child's lives. And what happened? We launched it, and we see a very low uptake, and also a low retention. And this didn't make sense, because this thing should help the parents. What's going wrong here? And we started talking again more to the parents, not just talking, but starting to actively have a parent advocacy group with which we really collaborated in a much deeper level. And we tried different experiments. And the big thing that we learned is that parent now has a new tool that requires some friction to use, but they're still overwhelmed. They're still struggling with issues. It might be guilt. It might be not sure what to do about specific scenarios at home. It might be frustrations with having to wait 4 years for a diagnosis. And what we realize is we're missing community and the emotional support, and that basically the opportunity for parents to brainstorm together. We're missing that human element. And we realize, yes, we have this tech, we have digital health solutions out there, but many times that's not enough. We actually need to take that technology and augment it again with humans, bring the humans back where we started missing out on them. And we've started doing this with group coaching pilots, with very much practical information delivered in form of videos, with building and growing that community around the parents. And it's really amazing the feedback we've been getting from that. It's encouraging, and it's a big lesson for us who comes from a technology background, saying, listen, it's not enough. We need that humans as a core part in digital health. So we basically shifted our focus from digital health solution, because it isn't a solution, it's an enabler. It enables integration and collaboration. It supports that. That's where digital health should be, and where it's strong at, and where technology is strong at. And a big part of, to make it a solution, we need the people. In our case, it's the parents, the teachers, the healthcare providers. In other kind of health conditions and scenarios, it's other people who might be, but they should be part of that solution. And the digital health side is only the enabler. And I'm finishing off with just 4 key points that stood out for me, what this implies in our thinking. One is human first design, both from the clinician's point of view, but also from the patient. In our case, it's the parent. The parent is key, and then subsequent to that, also the child's interaction. But we're more primarily focused still on the parent. It really needs to be from their point of view. It must bridge that gap from this complex healthcare system with all its problems to that parent at home being able to use this. So that's key to any digital health solution, is that human first design. The other thing, and I don't think this one we still struggle with, and I don't think many tech companies out there want to hear this. It's not about the app metrics, it's about health outcomes. Startups, especially if you have investors who are looking for a 10 or 100 time return on investment within a few years, it's all about metrics. Active users per day, active users per week, acquisition, all of those things. It's metrics all over. But metrics isn't having the impact that we need to. We need to get away from that quarter to quarter results and metrics scenario, and we need to focus on health outcomes. Easier said than done, especially if you're dependent on investment. For me, now that I've realized over the last few months, for digital health, enabler, like we're now building, to be valuable, it needs to grow a community. In our case, we focus a lot on the parent community and how to grow that. And that community might be different. And it must really empower the clinician and the patient. There's a few things there, and I don't want to go into too much detail because we're almost out of time, but one of the key points there is the patient must own their own data. That's how they're empowered. They're not empowered in traditional healthcare systems and electronic health record systems where they do not have access to their own data. They're empowered by having access to their own data. The clinician is empowered by being able to access information in a better way, share that, and also being able to make use of the digital health enabling platform to empower the patient to feed back better information. We're moving into a world where there's a lot more self-reported data, at-home monitoring, remote monitoring, the various terms for that. And it really supports the clinicians if that's done well and if there's good information coming from those systems. And that way the clinician gets empowered, and digital health supports those new approaches. And yeah, I mean, this is the core of what our learnings for our journey. If you want to have a look, there's our website. Tracto is the app that we've learned from. We're still learning from that. And it's been a very interesting journey for us to really figure out where is the value, how do we collaborate with our parents, with the clinicians, and with other technology providers out there in this ecosystem of this basically ecosystem and partnerships. And that's how we improve the healthcare systems out there.
Thank you, Herman, for the experience shared, for the lessons, for the advices, and really congratulations of what you're doing. It was nice hearing that you apply this patient-centered, in case parent-centered approach in developing and improving your solutions. Probably this is the secret of being successful. And I would like to ask here, do you have any feedback from parents of what is the biggest challenge or issue that the solution solves for them? And what is the greatest benefit?
Yeah, that's a good question. We kind of have different profiles of parents. So some of the feedback that surprised us initially is where it really has a big impact is on the parent-teacher relationship. Teachers are very actively involved in the children's care at the schools, and we can really got feedback from how it's improving that collaboration. So that's for a certain profile of parents. And then more recently, we started with piloting group coaching of parents. So 8 to 10 parents together with a coach who facilitates the discussions, and there we weren't sure exactly what's going to be the biggest impact of that coaching. That's why it's pilots and experiments. And the two big things that we've learned from them is it's about the emotional support that I mentioned in here and that brainstorming. The parents are actually extremely capable of supporting other parents who's been, if they've been through something, there's another parent. And if you facilitate that in the right way, that's an extremely powerful support mechanism for them.
Great. Thank you. And I wish you all the best and success to the things you're doing. And once again, it was an honor having you here today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.